These are historic leaders on this issue, and we want to see this project finished so that the debt is taken off the shoulders of millions of people across our country. Education is a promise of opportunity. When students enroll in school, they agree to dedicate their time and talent to the pursuit of knowledge, but they do so with the expectation that their school will fulfill their obligation to set students on a path to success. Instead, predatory institutions have taken students' money and in exchange lied and cheated and preyed on the dreams of those students. Today, I, along with Senator Durbin and Congresswoman Waters, have led over 70 of our colleagues in a letter to the Department of Education demanding they deliver debt relief to the millions of borrowers who were defrauded by predatory schools. These borrowers set out to pursue the American dream, but instead of earning a diploma that unlocked the doors of possibility, they found themselves being shackled with a worthless degree and the burden of student loan debt. Places like Corinthian colleges, ITT Technical Institute, and Brooks Institute told prospective students they would earn a valuable degree and secure a high-paying job, or that their credits would transfer to other schools. But they lied to the students. These fraudulent schools knew that their graduates remained unemployed or earned low wages, and they scammed new students anyway. These schools maliciously targeted first-generation students, low-income students, and black and brown students. They targeted veterans looking to transition to civilian life and used their hard-earned GI benefits on college combat veterans who gave up precious time with their families to take classes that turned out to actually just be worthless in the job market that these veterans sought to pursue. Borrowers put their lives on hold, unable to buy a home or start a family because they took out thousands of dollars in loans for a college program that promised maximum upward mobility but left them making minimum wages. During his first term, President Trump refused to deliver meaningful debt relief for defrauded borrowers. His administration ignored or denied borrowers' defense applications for years. It is no surprise that the face of Trump University, an unaccredited boondoggle that scammed attendees, left victims of fraud out in the cold. What these institutions did was unacceptable. And so President Trump's negligence has led to harm, pain for people across this country. Borrowers should not be forced to pay for what these institutions stole from them. But there is hope for these borrowers. The Biden administration has demonstrated the greatest commitment to student loan forgiveness of any presidential administration in American history, including agreeing to wipe out the debt of over 1 million defrauded borrowers. But many of those borrowers are still awaiting relief, and hundreds of thousands more are eligible for loan forgiveness under the Department of Education's Borrower Defense Program. And so we're here today to demand that the Department of Education deliver on President Biden's commitment to debt relief and process all outstanding borrower defense relief before President Trump slams the door shut on borrowers on January 20th. Borrowers who attended fraudulent schools and have struggled with debt for years or even decades cannot afford to wait any longer. Their student debt relief must be forgiven. It must be forgiven today. That is why we are here. We're saying to the Biden administration, Department of Education, get the job done. Finish the job so this burden is taken off the shoulder of all of these students before January 20th of 2025. So that's our message, and now I turn over to this great historic leader on this issue, Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois.
That's it. All right, before we get into the press conference, there are going to be 2 questions on the final, and I'm going to tell you the answers to the questions. Be prepared. What percentage of high school graduates and college students go to for-profit colleges and universities in the United States? 8% of college students in the United States go to for-profit schools, the ones we're talking about today. What percentage of student loan defaults in the United States are the students of for-profit colleges? 30%. 8% of the students, 30% of the defaults. What's going on here? Why are so many of these students defaulting? 2 reasons. Worthless diplomas from virtually worthless schools. That's what's happening here. Schools that receive the blessing and approval of the federal government to do business in the United States lured many of these students, some of them standing behind us here today, into believing that they were getting a real college education. Not true. And yet we were offering federal student loans, Pell Grants, and all the other trappings of the federal government to go to college. So they think they're in the real deal. This is a real college. Argosy, for example, which has been victimizing many of the people behind here, saying to them, this is a real college and you're going to get a real job and you're going to make real money. And it's all phony and false. They were deceiving them and defrauding these students. And I think the federal government was at least complacent, if not complicit, in this happening to these students. That's why we've got to step up and say to Joe Biden, you can't go back to Delaware until you get this done, buddy. We want to stick with you all the way through the last 6 or 7 weeks, but use this time to use the borrower's defense and give them a lease on life. I've met some of these students here. I still call them students, but maybe they're beyond that status. They're living in their parents' basement. They can't buy a home, they can't buy a car, they're stuck with debt of unimaginable extent. $400,000, $500,000, and more. You can't believe that, can you? It's because the miracle of compound interest has been killing them every single day since they supposedly finished their education experience. So I get some legislation, but I don't want to dwell on it. We're not going to get it passed in the closing days of this session. But what can happen is this president steps up and says we're going to clear the books for these students and give them a new opportunity in life. He can do it. We want him to do it. We're going to support him in doing it. We're going to tell him it has to be done before he leaves. So I thank you all for being here today. This battle has been one I've been engaged in for a long time, and I'm going to stick with it. This is a blight on public education and higher education in America that has to come to an end. And now my friend from the House of Representatives, the young woman who came to the city of Chicago and supported my candidacy for Senate, Maxine Waters of California.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Senator Markey and Senator Durbin. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so pleased to be here with these 2 senators, and I want to thank them for taking this letter that they composed and helped to educate us about what has not happened. I am so angry at myself that I did not know that what we thought had happened with the students had been defrauded at getting their money and getting their resources back. And I am so pleased that Senator Markey and Senator Durbin really did understand this, think about it, compose that letter, get us all to sign it, and brought you here today. Please give them a big round of applause. Well, I want you to know that I've been working to stop predatory for-profit colleges from defrauding students for years. Back in 2015, I urged the Department of Education to forgive the loans of students who attended Corinthian College. I know you all remember Corinthian. Some of you may have been victims of Corinthian, one of the worst, but there are plenty of them, which filed for bankruptcy that year after being sued by the Consumer Financial Protection Board and fined almost $30 million by the Department of Education for its fraudulent practice. I worked with Senator Durbin to introduce the CLASS Act, which enhances the accountability of for-profit colleges and safeguards taxpayers' funds by prohibiting any school receiving federal student aid funds from placing restrictions on students' ability to pursue legal claims in court. Predatory institutions like that Corinthian enrolled large numbers of veterans, low-income students, students of color, and first-generation college students. These students were just trying to get an education and better their lives, but they ended up deeply in debt and without useful degree to show for it. Ladies and gentlemen, as I have looked at your tags on your clothing here today, I want you to know that I am shaken by the amounts that I see that you owe. $550,000, $580,000, and on and on and on. I am not only upset with the Congress of the United States, with the Department of Education, with all the presidents who have not taken care of this issue, but I'm particularly angry with that new one that's coming in that we can't trust. And we don't want him to get in the way of blocking this. We want Biden, as it was said, to move this issue now, to get it done, to make sure that they get this money out. And so they haven't just organized a letter. They and I are going to be on them every day, pushing and pushing to make sure that you get this money and get these debts paid that is owed to you. I would like to apologize for all of those of you who thought that you were going to be able to improve your life, to get a better education, to have careers, and you trusted your government and you trusted these schools to be able to deliver. They have defrauded you. They have literally ignored, disrespected any of the adjectives that I can think of, and they have got to be held accountable. But we want to get this money, and we want to get this money now. Thank you for the organizing effort, bringing all of you here together. And we could see you from a block away with your red scarves on and your blue caps on. But I want to tell you, I tell you and I reiterate, I'm shocked by the amount of money and the debt that you have because of what has happened to you and your government. So you can count on us. The letter is out. It has been signed. How many members now? About 80?
Not enough. We need more.
Okay, 90 members.
Yeah, we need
90.
more.
We need more. Okay, we're going to get them. All right? We're going to get them. Thank you all for taking time out of your lives, despite what has happened to you, to come and be an advocate and get what has been done to you changed and make it right. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very much.
Maxine. Next, we're going to hear from Persis Yu, Deputy Executive Director of the Student
Not
Borrower
yet.
Protection Center.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, sorry.
Jambo Buana. I am Farid Amina Tumpe, an activist, advocate, agitator, and abolitionist. Born and raised right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the original custodians and stewards of this land, the Anacostan, Piscataway, and Pamunkey Indians, and state that it is past time that we agree to share and care for this land with those tribes. Again, good afternoon. Thank you to our esteemed elected officials, our advocacy organizations for joining us today. And thank you to the student debtors who came here to tell their stories. We are the Debt Collective, the nation's first union of debtors, and we are here with our members and allies to share firsthand experiences of the gross financial harms that student loan borrowers are facing at the hands of predatory for-profit colleges. And we are also here to urge President Biden in his final days to be the solution to this crisis. The Biden administration has less than 50 days left in office before President-elect Trump takes office. If Trump's Department of Education is anything like his first term, we know that borrowers will be made worse off. Not only is this unacceptable, but this is un-American. The Debt Collective is side by side, fighting back, state, city by city, neighborhood by neighborhood, to take back what was gouged from hard-working American borrowers. Because make no mistake, we're engaged in the battle of our time. And that's why we are here today. to urge President Biden to eliminate student debt as quickly as possible so that working people and their families can be liberated from this heavy burden. All student loan borrowers are facing financial burdens, but those who have been defrauded by predatory for-profit colleges are facing being harmed, abused. We're talking about women, veterans, black and brown people, folks with different abilities, and anyone they could find to extract a profit from. We are here today to urge the Biden administration to right this wrong, to cancel student debt for defrauded borrowers with the little time Biden has left. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our first speaker, Persis Yu, the Deputy Director of the Student Borrower Protection Center. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fari. Good afternoon. My name is Persis Yu, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director and Managing Counsel for the Student Borrower Protection Center. I want to first thank Senators Markey, Durbin, Congresswoman Waters for their leadership on this issue and for helping to elevate the voices of these borrowers. I also want to thank Chairman Sanders and Congresswoman Jayapal for standing with us. For too long, for-profit colleges have preyed upon the most vulnerable students and families across our country, dangling the promise of economic mobility and the American dream, but in the end, leaving them with useless degrees and mountains of debt. Over the course of the Biden-Harris administration, we've seen an unprecedented 5 million borrowers freed from the burden of student debt, including those who were defrauded by their school. And to be perfectly clear, none of this is charity. It is justice. Justice for working families saddled with debt for far too long. Justice for borrowers cheated out of their dream. But we know the job is not done. Hundreds of thousands of borrowers approved for relief have been left waiting. Hundreds of thousands of borrower defense applications have been left processing and will be stuck in limbo unless the Biden-Harris administration acts. These borrowers and their families are running out of time, and the stakes have never been higher. In less than 50 days, President-elect Trump will be sworn into office. He has promised to shutter the doors of the Department of Education, make student debt more expensive, and push relief even further out of reach. These threats are not hyperbole. We must never forget how the first Trump administration made it easier for for-profit colleges to cheat students and actively work to prevent borrowers from getting the relief they were entitled to. We must never forget how the first Trump administration made it harder to hold their student loan contractors accountable for failing to do their jobs and pushing borrowers further into debt. Time is ticking, and these borrowers deserve relief. The Biden-Harris administration must act to process all remaining debt discharges for borrowers already approved for relief and ensure that borrowers preyed upon by the for-profit college industry are made debt-free before it is too late. Thank you so much, everyone. And now, next, my colleague, David Halpern, lawyer and advocate.
Thank you. Representative Waters is a hero on this issue. She's known about this since the 1970s.
That's right.
When people in her district were telling her they were getting scammed. I want to thank her and also Senator Markey and Senator Durbin, who have been incredible champions also. And thank you most of all to the people who came here, Ashley, who organized this, and the borrowers who were ripped off by predatory colleges and are now fighting back. They're asking for justice. They're asking for their financial lives back. The Biden administration should act right now to grant broad debt relief for struggling borrowers and especially the victims of predatory schools. I want to say something today about the incoming Trump administration. Trump says he will create a new department run by Elon Musk to go after waste, fraud, and abuse. Mr. Trump, Mr. Musk, here is the real waste, fraud, and abuse. Low quality, high-priced for-profit colleges sold through deception that have received literally hundreds of billions of dollars in taxpayer money and have left many students worse off than when they started, buried in debt without the careers they sought. The Biden administration, like the Obama administration, fought against this blatant waste, fraud, and abuse by creating performance standards for schools getting taxpayer dollars. That's called the gainful employment rule. They created the borrower defense rule that gives colleges skin in the game. If they scam students, students get relief, and the government can try to recoup the money. President Biden also signed a bipartisan bill to reform the federal 90-10 law to prevent the extreme targeting of military service members and veterans. The first Trump administration, unfortunately, went in the opposite direction. Remember Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education? She staffed her department with executives of for-profit colleges, and she got rid of the gainful employment and borrower defense rules. She shut down the enforcement team that was fighting against deceptive practices. And when veterans groups pushed in 2020 for the 90-10 reform law that I just mentioned, a Fox News host named Pete Hegseth took money from the for-profit college industry to make sure Trump, his friend, would oppose that law. Why are so many Republicans obedient to this corrupt industry that harms veterans, single mothers, people of color, rural people, immigrants, the elderly, and others struggling to build better lives? Is it really worth the few $100,000 in campaign contributions that this industry provides every year? Is it really worth endorsing all this waste, fraud, and abuse? Whatever reason, it's time for this madness to stop, or else another generation of victims will be right here in 10 years seeking relief from yet another mountain of unfair student debt. So I hope senators will ask Trump's new Secretary of Education nominee, Linda McMahon, to commit in serious, concrete ways to stand up for America's students and not for a predatory industry that has for decades abused students and cheated American taxpayers. Thanks. And now I want to bring up Ashley Pizzuti, who actually organized this and is incredible and fighting for students. Thank you, Ashley.
Good afternoon, and thank you for standing with us today. We are here to call for action and demand accountability for the millions of students defrauded by predatory for-profit colleges. My name is Ashley Pizzuti. Over 20 years ago, I attended a for-profit school, Brooks Institute. I was told I would have no problem getting a job as a photojournalist, making an easy $80,000 to $100,000 a year. And they promised to help me land that job. This was a time when most people had dial-up internet. There was no information for me to find out if I was heading into disaster. This was supposed to be an institution of higher learning. I thought that they would have my best interest at heart. I was wrong. They told me I couldn't work while in school, and even though I did, I still ended up with $120,000 in loans. I graduated Brooks at the top of my class, but finding a job that would help me pay for my groceries, keep a roof over my head, and pay for my loans was next to impossible. The school provided no assistance they promised. My then boyfriend, now husband, was in the same boat. We were both hard workers, ambitious, and had dreams of building a life together. Little did I know that within a few years of graduating, my husband and I would find ourselves in roughly $500,000 in debt.
Oh my God.
And the only job I could find was a mall portrait studio, the same job I held in high school. We eventually found some footing, but we were forced to pay 60 to 70% of our income to our loans every year and never saw the balance decrease. Brooks was becoming well known to controversy for misleading its students. Its parent company, Career Education Corporation, was being sued left and right from students, attorney generals, and even their own shareholders. Eventually, the school was shut down in 2016, and a group of borrowers started to organize. A PDF application of borrower defense to repayment started to circulate, and we applied. Together, we collected evidence and victim impact statements. Borrower Defense is a federal program that allows student loan borrowers to have their federal loans forgiven if they can prove their college or university defrauded them through misleading claims or illegal conduct. It took 2 administrations and a lawsuit against the department for us to finally be free of that debt and lifelong crushing impact on our family. Tens of thousands have not been so lucky. For Brooks borrowers, this student loan fight does not stop with federal loans. For many debtors, the majority of loans are private. Even Navient, with all their issues, including being banned from servicing federal student loans, have granted several Brooks borrowers full cancellation of their massive private loans thanks to their school misconduct application. If bad actor Navient thinks these borrowers have been defrauded, then why can't the department? Let's be clear, we are running out of time. For far too long, the department has failed these borrowers. Students were misled, saddled with crushing debt, and left to navigate a broken system alone. It is unacceptable that borrowers have had to prove over and over they have been defrauded. I personally have collected and delivered over 10,000 pages. 10,000 pages of evidence against Brooks Institute and to the Department of Education, followed by thousands more for both Argosy and Kaplan University. We still have more to deliver to them. It is unacceptable that borrowers have had to sue the government to ensure borrowers' rights are acknowledged. It is unacceptable that organizations like Project on Predatory Student Lending, the Debt Collective, and Student Borrower Protection Center should be doing the work of the department. We thank them for their tireless efforts, but it shouldn't be necessary. The Department of Education has the authority and evidence to act, yet over 400,000 borrower defense applications remain in limbo, and many borrowers are still waiting for relief. That was promised years ago. It's a long past time for the department to discharge loans that have already been approved for borrower defense. Defrauded students cannot wait any longer. Clear the backlog of applications. Borrowers deserve action, not delays. Cancel all student loans for evidence with substantial misconduct.
Yes.
This is not just policy failure. This is moral failure. Debt relief is not charity. It is justice against predatory for-profit schemes that stole people's futures. Borrowers should not be burdened with debt from degrees from institutions that no longer exist and for jobs that were falsely promised. We call on the Department of Education to stop dragging its feet. Lives and livelihoods are at stake. The students and public services that stand here deserve better. It's time to act. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
And I would like to introduce Valerie Scott, who is an organizer for Argosy.
Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for coming and for everyone who flew out from around the country for this. I'd especially like to thank Senator Markey, Senator Durbin, and Congresswoman Waters for giving us this platform here today. I'm Valerie Scott. I'm a psychologist, and I'm a victim of Argosy University's scams. I'm also the lead organizer for the Argosy University Debt Cancellation Initiative. I've collected over 6,000 pages of evidence and delivered that to the Department of Education, and I have another 1,000 more to give them tonight. Argosy University preyed on those seeking to advance their careers through higher education. They gave their recruiters fancy names like Assistant Director of Admissions or ADAs to hide the fact that they're essentially the educational equivalent of used car salesmen. The ADAs were trained to bully prospective students into signing up. Now, hurry, don't waste any time, we might give away your slot. ADAs were also trained to be very cunning. They avoided any talk about the actual cost of tuition, and we've obtained recruiting binders that show how they were trained to do that. By the time we realized we'd been duped, it was too late. We were tens of thousands of dollars in debt. So we just told ourselves, if I can just get my degree, if I can just get out of here, everything's going to be okay. What we were not told is that the average therapist makes about $50,000 to $70,000 a year. By the time we graduated, our average debt was $250,000, which is 3 to 5 times what we were quoted by the ADAs. I personally owe $389,000, which, as you can see here today, is not a drop in the bucket to compare to my colleagues. Now that Argosy's closed, we're left with what's called the Argosy stink. Employers see Argosy on our resumes and immediately move to the next application in the pile. This is not conjecture, this is real. It happened to me even before Argosy closed in 2019. And you can ask anyone in this crowd, and every one of them will have a story just like mine. Did I mention there's a mental health crisis in this country, and we have therapists who can't get jobs? We surveyed Argosy University graduates. Half of them cannot afford to buy a house. A quarter of them have put off important medical procedures. Many have put off getting married, having children, all because their student loan payments are so high they can't afford it. We cannot contribute to savings or retirement. Some have been homeless and lost their cars, all because of Argosy's lies. Just think about the impact to the economy with all of these dollars being spent on never-ending loan payments instead of buying homes, goods, and services or starting small businesses. At an average of $60,000 a year, we are not bumping elbows with the upper crust. We owe a mortgage in student loans. As if everything Argosy did wasn't bad enough, let's talk about what they did to our veterans. Argosy University systematically targeted veterans and military spouses for the GI Bill money in order to take advantage of the loopholes in the 90-10 rule. So for every veteran they took in, they could take in 9 more unsuspecting students. You're going to hear several of these stories in a moment. Now, I'm a combat veteran and a military spouse. So I know what it means to sacrifice and work hard in the service of others for the greater good. And I often quote the warrior ethos to myself and to others to inspire the energy to keep going even when things get hard. If you know it, say it with me. I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. So this is my call to action. My mission now is to see complete debt cancellation for every single student who attended Argosy University. Senators Markey, Durbin, and Congresswoman Waters, and the more than 70 others who signed that letter have all committed to this same mission, and we are forever grateful. It does seem a bit daunting, given that the incoming administration has called student loan cancellation vile and vowed to fight it with every ounce of their energy. But we cannot accept defeat. We cannot engage in learned helplessness simply because every time we try to do something to help students, the other side files a frivolous lawsuit. We cannot quit. The Department of Education cannot leave a single borrower behind. We must ensure that every single person who is scammed by their school is made whole. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Bonnie Snyder.
Good afternoon. My name is Bonnie Snyder, United States Army retired, and a mental health professional whose area of concentration is substance use disorders and behavior. Go Army, hooah! The pursuit of higher education should not come at great personal anguish or expense, yet this is the reality for many of us. I'm also grateful for the opportunity to share my story in the hopes that it will draw increased attention to the wrongs inflicted upon those of us whose only transgression was putting our trust into predatory schools. I'm going to give a special shout out to Ashley and to Valerie for putting this together. During my senior year of high school, I decided a career in the military would not only allow me to serve my country, but afford me the ability to pay for college. I would be able to complete several degrees before retirement. At the age of 48, after applying and accepted into the PsyD program at Argosy University, Tampa, I would have never believed that my dream of becoming a doctor would turn into a nightmare. I was led to believe that I was fast-tracked into the PsyD program. However, after beginning school, I learned I was being forced to complete a second master's in psychology. I was never told the application for transfer credits should have been done before I started the program. And I would continue to endure having my tuition increase significantly each semester, something that had never happened in previous schools. My disabled veteran status required 504 accommodations. Unfortunately, those accommodations would become a weapon that was used against me. I would be removed from classes and not provided formal instruction for required assignments. At time, I was also told because of my age and my experience, I was not a good fit for an Argosy student. Students were supposed to be in their 20s. Perhaps the most insulting blow was when I was diagnosed with cancer for the first time. Because of the emotional toll and treatment required, I was placed on medical leave for 1 semester. Although I was assured by our dean that I would be able to return once I was medically cleared, my relenting attempts to return was met with silence. And subsequently, I discovered I was withdrawn from the program. And adding further insult, our school was subsequently closed in 2019. I have no doubt that there are many stories similar to mine. Stories of students who sought to pursue higher education only to be left with no degrees, no jobs, dreams not realized, and mounting student loan debt. Never did I think that I would be here one day pleading for swift action to correct the wrong inflicted on so many students such as myself, victims of predatory practices. And in the case of Argosy, a greedy private school whose only goal appeared to be to promise us with an education we sought and agreed to pay for, and then left us holding the bill. I thank you for your time, for this time. I hope that our shared stories opens your eyes to the fact that that the United States needs education reform, starting with student loan debt cancellation today, as well as secondary education, a more affordable secondary cost, and as in some countries, no cost at all. Thank you.
And now we will hear from Dan Moore, a Brooks borrower.
Hello, friends. I'm very thankful to be here with friends, colleagues, especially cameramen. I see you there. We were told from our earliest lessons that going to college after high school was the right thing to do. We were told getting a college degree meant more doors would be open for us, that we'd have a shot at a career, and we would have a better chance of providing for our families. Instead, many of us found doing the right thing would actually be wrong. Many of us were sold a bill of goods that never materialized, and as a result, we carry debts that rivals doctors, Ivy League graduates, and even those with multiple degrees. Like Sisyphus, we find ourselves damned to push a boulder up a hill for eternity. After years of hard work and learning, we find ourselves with little more than ballooning debt. You remember Sisyphus, right? He defied the gods to put death in chains so that no human needed to die. When death was eventually liberated and it came time for Sisyphus himself to die, he concocted a lie and let him escape the underworld. After finally capturing Sisyphus, the gods decided that his punishment would last for all eternity. He would have to push that rock up a mountain. Upon reaching the top, the rock would fall down again, leaving him to start all over. We are like Sisyphus. Carrying this loan debt is a vicious cycle. I struggle to earn a living wage, which prevents me from contributing to the economy, ultimately impacting my community. As a matter of fact, today I am facing an eviction. Not because I'm a bad tenant, but because I can't keep up with the bill. There are few resources that can help until it's too late. For-profit education is little more than a business created with the intent of taking advantage of people trying to do the right thing. It's a business created with the intent of siphoning tax dollars into corporate accounts through people like me. We were exploited and left to pay for less than we were promised. This is criminal. I loved my time at Brooks Institute. It was a school where I felt like I belonged. I owe my career to my experience there, and I can honestly say that it changed my life. I don't believe that paying for it should take my entire life. We need change now. What counts is not the best living, but the most living. Help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And now let us welcome Kat and Chris Hughes, Argosy borrowers.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. I am Dr. Julia Penwell Hughes, otherwise known as Kat, a psychologist who has dedicated her life serving our military as a contracted and civilian psychologist.
And I am Chris Hughes, a dedicated IT contractor that I've worked tirelessly, helped raise a family, and sacrificed dreams, all for a brighter future. We waited 20 years to have our second child, saving every penny we could, and pursued higher education, paid our taxes, and played by the rules.
Yet, today, at 42 years old, we find ourselves living in my parents' basement in West Virginia. The reason? Our student loan debt has nearly tripled due to hidden compounding interest, totaling over $600,000. In 2008, I enrolled in Argosy University's doctoral program, believing it was a step towards a fulfilling career. But I was cruelly deceived. Argosy was not an institution of higher learning. It was a predatory machine, preying on the hopes and dreams of vulnerable students like ourselves and everyone behind us. They lured us in with promises of a better future, only to trap us in a cycle of debt.
My story is eerily similar. The Art Institute promised a career in game design, a dream I eagerly pursued. But the reality was far different. They inflated job placement rates and salary expectations, leaving me drowning in debt without finishing my degree. We sacrificed everything. We lived overseas for 6 years, enduring hardship and separation from loved ones, all in the service of our country. We returned home broken and defeated, only to be met by a mountain of debt.
Argosy and the Art Institute were both owned by the same predatory corporations that have had a long history of fraud and deception. They have profited from the misery of countless students, leaving us shattered dreams and a lifetime of financial burdens. Art Institute itself was recently named for group discharge, while Argosy, a sister institution, has been inexplicably ignored. It is unforgivable that not every single branch of the former EDMC and Dream Center have not been brought to the forefront for committing the same atrocities. Why are some of us being ignored and left suffering? Moreover, not even all AI students, like my husband, have received the promised forgiveness that was announced in May. Promises are being made, but not honored at the expense of people's lives and dreams, ourselves included. We are honest, hard-working Americans whose families have been in this country since its founding. Our ancestors have fought and sacrificed, and we've continued the legacy. However, we are being denied the promises of liberty and the pursuit of happiness, all for the interest of corporate greed.
We are not asking for a handout. We demand justice. We demand accountability. We demand relief.
We are the forgotten victims of a broken system. We are the faces of student loan debt, the silent casualty of corporate greed.
It's time to end this nightmare. It's time to hold these predatory institutions accountable. It's time to provide relief to those who have been wronged.
We are Kat and Chris Hughes. We are the American dream deferred. We are the victims of predatory lending, and we will not be silenced. Up next, I would like to introduce Erica Kane, another fellow Argosy borrower.
Good afternoon. They let me go pretty close to the end, so of course my teeth are chattering and I'm freezing cold. So, I'm Dr. Erica Kane. I'm a psychologist. I'm here today to talk about how, as a first-generation and non-traditional college student, a combat veteran, a widow, and a single mother, I was taken advantage of and exploited by Argosy University. I decided to get a degree in psychology after I was discharged from the Marine Corps with combat-related PTSD. Psychotherapy helped me tremendously, and I wanted to be able to give back what was given to me. This is where Argosy University comes in. I was in the final class of my bachelor's degree program when an Argosy admissions counselor came in to give a presentation. Before the presentation, they collected everyone's name and contact information. Almost immediately, I began to receive numerous calls and emails. I finally agreed to meet with an admissions counselor, and I was promptly told that it would be highly unlikely that I would be accepted into a traditional PhD program. That was because I would be soon graduating from a private university and because I was too old. I was 31 at the time. This is almost 20 years later. I was also told that if I wanted to actually practice psychology, I would need the degree that Argosy was offering, which is a doctorate in psychology, a PsyD, as opposed to the PhD program, which is what was the standard at the time. Argosy deceptively stated that those with a PhD didn't actually practice psychology, rather they were people who researched or taught. Of course, now I know that that's not true. As a combat veteran, I was told by Argosy that I would receive a 10% discount off of tuition costs. Despite years of emails and phone calls and even showing up in person, I can only assume that that supposed discount never existed. Another matter that Argosy failed to mention after orientation was that we would not be permitted to work while in the program. What they stated was that it was shown that it would interfere with successfully completing the program. During my program, my husband died unexpectedly. I feared I'd have to drop out to support myself and my son without his income. I asked Argosy for approval to work part-time, but I was told no. So in order to finish my degree, my mother moved from Indiana to Arizona, and at the suggestion of Argosy, I took out more loans to support myself and my son until my mother could find employment. I was made to believe that as a doctor in psychology, I would earn more than enough money to pay back any loans. However, I soon found out after graduating that 1 hour of my time is compensated at about the same rate as 10 minutes of a medical doctor's salary. I was told that the program would cost approximately $89,000. Sorry. Trying to turn the page. But because of Argosy's deceptive and fraudulent actions, I now owe more than $452,000. My loans accrue more than $3,000 every month. It's absolutely impossible for me to make these payments on a psychologist's salary. Without intervention, there's no question that I will be paying these loans until I die, and I only wanted to help others. Thank you for your time.
And now we will hear from Dr. Carol Dees Lopez, National Alliance on Student Loan Debt.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for asking me to speak today on behalf of all of the student borrowers affected by this. So, as we know, this is a crisis of epic proportions. The National Alliance on Student Loan Debt exists and was born out of my trauma as a student borrower and victim of Argosy University. We exist to champion fair, transparent, and humane solutions of the overwhelming burden of student debt in the United States. Our mission is simple, yet vital: to advocate for systemic reform that ensures higher education is a pathway to opportunity, not a lifelong sentence of financial struggle. We strive to empower borrowers, push for equitable policies, and hold institutions accountable for practices that prioritize profit over education and integrity. This mission isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about dignity, opportunity, and most of all, helping people to maintain their physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Let's talk about the human cost. Right now, over 45 million Americans are weighed down by student loans, totaling nearly $2 trillion. Beyond the financial strain, the mental health impact is devastating. Research shows consistently that the stress of overwhelming debt leads to anxiety, depression, alcohol, and other drug use, suicide ideation, and even death in some cases. People delay life milestones like marriage, starting families, and home ownership, not because they don't want to move forward, but because their financial reality won't allow it. This is not being talked about enough. Our medical and mental health providers need to screen for this stressor and provide resources accordingly. Imagine waking up every day feeling like no matter how hard you work, you're sinking deeper into the abyss. That's the reality for millions of us with these compounding loans, where the principal is never touched, but the balance continues to grow. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's missed opportunities, sleepless nights, and consistent worry about what happens if you fall behind. The weight of this crisis is particularly heavy for marginalized communities. Black borrowers, for instance, are more likely to borrow larger amounts and take longer to pay them off due to systemic disparities in income and generational wealth. Women, especially women of color, disproportionately carry the burden of student debt while earning less on average than their male counterparts. These inequities deepen existing social and economic divides, perpetuating cycles of poverty and despair. It is unacceptable. The National Alliance on Student Loan Debt believes that no one should have to choose between their mental health and their financial survival. We are advocating for strong policy reforms that include widespread debt cancellation, improved income-driven repayment options, and stricter regulations on predatory institutions that leave students worse off than when they started. We're fighting for mental health resources for borrowers so they have support not only for their financial stressors, but also for the emotional toll that is levied on them. But we cannot do this alone. The stories of those burdened by debt, stories of sacrifice, resilience, and pain are our most powerful tool for change. I, for one, poured my heart out to Mr. Ben Miller, Deputy Undersecretary of the Department of Education, at a meeting held in September of this year where I shared my personal story. I cried as I shared my story because I could not hold the emotion in. It was too much. Together, by amplifying our voices, we can challenge the status quo and demand a system that values people over profit. My organization is committed to helping people find their voice and share their stories with anyone who will listen. Many of us cannot speak with our friends and family about this. These painful experiences are too much to share, and we carry a lot of shame. That's why we have created this organization, to grow a strong, caring community of student borrowers who go the extra mile to help each other. But because of the financial and oversight roles the Department of Education plays in our education system, it must do its part to protect student borrowers from predatory institutions and make amends for decades of failures. Let us not forget, education is supposed to be a stepping stone to a better life, not a pathway to mountainous, unpayable lifetime debt. The student loan crisis isn't just an economic issue, it's a moral one. And addressing it isn't just about fixing numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about restoring hope and humanity to people who value learning. We urge the Biden administration and the Department of Education to do right by defrauded borrowers before they relinquish power. Thank you.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out today on this very cold day here in December. We demand action. We demand the department to cancel these loans today. It is unfair that these borrowers have to continue to suffer after they have been defrauded. Thank you.